everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. Hope you're all doing very well today. In this video, I'm going to tell you guys about the early career of Bob Feller, how he got started in the major leagues. And this is something that I don't think is really talked about that often these days. And, obviously people know who Bob Feller is. He's one of the greatest pitchers of all time. And, despite the fact that he served in World War II, he was still able to compile an amazing career. And I can't even imagine what his numbers would have been like had he actually foregone going into the Navy on December 8th, 1941. However, he is actually the first major league pitcher or player to actually go into the military enlist during World War II. Now, there are other players, losing pitcher Mulcahy. He actually was inducted into the military in 1940, missed 5 years. And then you also had Hank Greenberg as well, who did his service in 1941. And then World War II comes around, and he got out of the military only to go back into it. So he also missed about 5 years or so. But other than that, Bob Feller is really one of the first players to enlist into the military in the Navy in 1941, December 8th. And I can't imagine what his numbers would have been like. Um, I think if he had not done that, and actually he probably would have won maybe about 25 to 27 games a year for 3 years. You can imagine what it'd probably be like another 150 wins on top of his. I think he had like 266 major league wins. It actually could be a little bit more than that, but he'd easily be a 300 game winner. And so he actually uh, he was actually very proud of his military service, probably more so than his baseball career. It was something that he often talked about, and he he was the kind of player or person that was very interested in telling you about what it was like to play in the 1930s and the 1940s, and he was very sharp too. He knew all the names of the players that he pitched against and with. And so he was a wealth of information. For me personally, I just like to uh, listen to what he had to say. We'd talk on the phone quite often, and I'd see him every once in a while when he'd come up here, and we'd just talk about baseball and whatever else came up. Uh, the one thing that I think is really interesting is his actual rookie card because Beckett and a few other price guides have maintained that it's his 1948 Bowman. That is not true at all. It's a nice card, but it's not his rookie. His rookie card actually is a 1937 Gaudi Fine Pen Premium. I seen this card a couple of times. It's actually a really nice card, but it doesn't really come up often. And then it's a black back card as well. So a lot of collectors may not like that fact, and they say that it's not an issue that was widespread, so it can't be his rookie card. But there's really nothing that says that a regional card is not a rookie card. It's usually the first card that is manufactured for a ball player. His first image on a card is technically supposed to be their rookie. Now, that probably has changed, and especially for modern players, Victor, the rookie card specialist, probably could tell you a little bit more about rookie cards, especially modern cards. Cards going from like 1966 to the present day, a little bit more than I could. And he's got a great channel too, so you might want to go over and check out his channel. And so I also know of another, I think it's a rookie card. It's certainly one of his very earliest, and that's a 1937 OPG. I've never seen this card in person, and I've seen it online. But again, I always tell you guys that seeing a card in hand is a lot different than seeing a card online. It's a completely different feeling. It's kind of like artwork, right? So you can see artwork online, but if you don't see it in person, it's not going to have the same kind of feeling, right? So I do actually have a very early premium of Bob Feller, and it is this right here. This is a 1938 Dixie Lid Premium F7, I believe it's, let me see. It is, yeah, 1938 F7 Dixie Lid Premium. And this is some amazing artwork. Whoever did this is fantastic. I really love this premium. I always did. Actually, this is an upgrade. So I had a card or a premium, if you will, when I was like probably 17 or 18 years old. I had purchased one pretty expensive actually back in the day. I think it cost me about 60 bucks. And so I recently gave that to a friend of mine, and I had the opportunity to purchase this one. And I think it's just an upgrade. It's the artwork is amazing on this, and these are really fantastic. The Dixie Lid themselves, they're the exact same image, but what you had to do was turn in the lids to get the premium. So the lids are not easy to come by. I'd rather have the premium, to tell you the truth. And in fact, I'm only one premium away from completing both sets in 1937 and 1938. And the one I'm missing is the Bronco Nagurski. And oh man, I'm not sure if I'm ever going to complete this thing. But Sammy Baugh's rookie is also in this set as well, and it's another situation similar to Bob Feller here, where a lot of people say that Bob Feller's rookie is in the 1948 Bowman, which is not, and Sammy Baugh's rookie is in the 1938 Dixieland Premium set, and that one's not really found often either. And the premiums are, again, they're really nice. The artwork is fantastic, and that's one of the reasons why I really love this particular premium, because it shows a very young Bob Feller in all his glory. And so I do have a few other Bob Feller cards. Surprisingly, he's not in the 1939, 40, or 41 play ball set. You would think he was, and he is in the 1938 Gaudy set. Again, that's not his rookie card, but it's a very popular card. I would love to own a copy. Maybe someday I will. It's just extremely expensive card, and everybody wants that particular card. The other funny thing about the 1938 Gaudy heads up, Bobby Dorr, he's also in that set. That's not his rookie either, and again, his rookie, Bobby Dorr's rookie, is in the 1937 Gaudy set as well. The 1937 Gaudy Bob Feller is actually a Canadian issue as far as I know. So it's got a different American card catalog designation, which I forget off the top of my head. So I do have a few other Bob Feller cards I'd like to show you guys, and one of them happens to be the 1950 Bowman, and this is a really great piece of artwork as far as I'm concerned. Not just a card, it's art, and it's Bob Feller in his windup. Unfortunately, it's a little blurry, but I'm gonna have another photo of this, a much more clearer, crisper photo as we go along. But I really like this card. I bought it pretty cheap way back in the day, and I'll show you the back of it as well if you guys haven't seen this. A lot of Bob Feller's cards are getting pretty expensive. Surprisingly enough, his autograph is getting a little more expensive too, which is really absurd to me because he was one of the first retired players to go to card shows, and he started back in 1974. at card shows, and he continued all the way up until his passing. And what he would do is he would get into his car instead of a airplane and just crisscross the country back and forth in his car. And he would go to all these shows and sign autographs. And the one thing that I think this did for him was that it opened his name up, his reputation, and his story, if you will. It opened up for younger generations, people who never saw him play, like me. But he is one of the greatest pitchers of the 1930s, 1940s, and early 1950s. He had a 20-year career, in fact. He loved to go to see people. He'd love to tell his stories to anyone who wanted to hear them. And this, for a guy like me, this was gold because I just love to sit and just listen to what he had to say. And so another card that I have of his is the 1952 Tops. I've had this card for forever. I think I paid something like 60 bucks for it, which as a teenager, that was a lot of money back then. But again, his cards are now getting pretty expensive. And you know, his autograph is like, it's more common than pigeons. Okay, so you can find his autograph. I don't think there's anybody in the world that would forge a Bob Feller autograph. I say that, and I think I came across a forgery of his, something very suspect. But the 1952 Tops, I'm not a big fan of the 52 Tops set. I I know this is going to be sacrilege for me to say this, but I think it's overrated. Yeah, it's a historical set, and you know my father's generation absolutely loved this set and the cards because that's the one of the first sets that they really fell in love with as kids. And when you know my father's generation grew older and started having kids of their own, the baby boomers, they started to go after these particular cards because that's what they remembered as kids, which you know every generation does. But they also jacked up the prices as well. So you know, in the I think 1977, 78, Walter Hall from Hall's Nostalgia, I think he was the first dealer to purchase a Mickey Mantle for $100,000. And there's are articles actually about this. And a lot of people have said, "Oh, he's crazy. He's nuts." You know, that's insane kind of money to be spending on a 52 tops mantle. He may have been a trendsetter, to tell you the truth, because you know, obviously Mickey Mantle cards have gone for like $6 million. I would never spend $6 million for a card. That doesn't seem something like I would ever do. But you know, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do with their money. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. However, I actually think that this is the same photo that was used by Gum Products Inc. on their 1941 double play cards for Bob Feller. And it looks exactly like it. So I think that's what this is. The funny thing is he is in the 1941 double play set. That's a card that is pretty affordable. I think you guys can find it. It's not going to be all that expensive. It wasn't when I was a kid, and it wasn't up till a couple of years ago. And I have seen a few of those. So this one again is kind of expensive, like a lot of Bob Feller cards are now. Just that just kind of goes to show you that he's still very relevant and very popular with fans and collectors. And then the other is the 1953 Tops. Jerry Dorvac, he's really associated with doing a lot of the artwork for this particular set. I don't know which pieces of art that he did for the set. He was actually in college when he painted the portraits, and I think they all come from photographs just like the 1952 tops. And the other thing about 1952 tops is that there should be a black and white photo associated with every single card. So what Woody Gelman and Cyberger did was they sent away for a colorization kit from Kodak, and they colorized the cards. So again, I do kind of like some of the cards in this set, not all of them. One of my favorite cards in this set actually is the Andy Pafko, the #1 card, and I do actually have that card, and I knew Andy as well, and a great guy. He was a great guy to his fans and to me too. A lot of these older ball players were very personable, and you could reach out to them and you could talk to them like regular everyday people because that's what they were. At least by the time I started, they were elderly people, but again, they used to go to shows and they used to do autograph signings to supplement their Social Security or their pensions. That may not have been the case for Bob Feller here. He did like going to state to state to city to city to meet people, meet fans, and kind of like transcend, I guess. Baseball is what he did, a lot like what Frank Gifford and Yogi Berra did as well, and Phil Rizzuto too. So I knew Phil Rizzuto as the guy from the money store, and some people knew him from the guy from the mafia. And I'm just joking about that, by the way. Oh, am I? I'm not sure. And other people knew him as an announcer, and other people knew him as a player. So, again, whether or not you think that Phil Rizzuto should be in the Hall of Fame is another story. But he's a guy who transcended generations as well as Bob Feller here and Yogi Berra um, and Frank Gifford. So anyway, getting back to this particular card, the artwork is phenomenal in this set. I really enjoy it. I think this is a classic card, and it's also a card that you're going to see on advertising for the set. Uh, Tops and what they did back in 1953 when the set was being issued was they had advertising panels with this card on it telling you to buy 1953 Tops. And I can't think of a better looking card. I'm not a big fan of the Mickey Mantle in this set, and I do like the 1953 Topps Willie Mays. That's a really nice card. I think it's a lot better actually than his 52 Topps, or even his 52 Bowman. But again, getting back to this one, this is a fantastic card. What Jerry Dorvac did, and we don't know what cards he did and what cards he didn't, and he wasn't the only artist that did this set. He did a lot of them, and he's actually more known for his work on Hanna-Barbera than anything else. So it's kind of surprising when years later, and I think like 1984, he gave an interview to Baseball Cards magazine and I actually have that magazine and the article. And he said, yes, I am the one who did the artwork for the 1953 Tops set, but he's like, I didn't do all the cards, and he didn't do the artwork for Mickey Mantle. So we don't know what cards he did and what he didn't. But what he used to do was he would kind of make up the backgrounds of the cards. So if you do actually see a photograph, because he was going by photographs, the photograph actually might be a lot different than the actual card itself. So you might want to keep that in mind. The other thing too, which I really like about this particular set, is several years ago, um, Cy Berger found a lot of the original artwork in the trash. Can you imagine that? Somebody at Topps threw out all the artwork of this particular set. That's amazing to me. It's just, okay, so not to get off topic here, but we don't actually have any artwork for any of the T206, the T205s or T207s. So that kind of like tells me that somebody over at American Lithograph Company threw out the artwork, which is astounding because I think that artwork would have been more expensive than uh, the cards. Obviously, they would go for thousands and upon thousands of dollars, and we could learn a lot from that original artwork. We do have photos, in fact, of uh, the T205s, so and some T206s. it's kind of interesting because it kind of shows you like the tricks of the trade that the artists used to actually get these cards into production and the artwork. It's just too bad that we don't have a lot of artwork for some of these cards. And I don't think we have all the artwork for the 1953 tops. It was an amazing thing that Cy Berger actually found the stuff and kept it. And again, there was some pieces of artwork in that 53 top set that were never issued, and that's a story for another time as to why. But now I'm getting off topic here because I really wanted to talk about Bob Feller's early career. I don't have any other Bob Feller cards. I thought at this point I would have at least had a 1949 Bowman. The 48 leaf, forget about it. That's one of the top rarities in the hobby. It's just such an expensive card, that 48 leaf. I think it may start out at about $12,000, which is the equivalent of about 30 1984 Oldsmobile Shipwalk Supremes, or a really decent car, which I don't have. His 51 and his 52 Bowman are really nice. I don't have those. I wish I did. I might add them at some point. But again, I'd love to know what cards that you like of Bob Feller. If you guys have any in your collection, let me know what they are. I'm always interested to hear what you guys have to say. And let's get on to these articles. I think you're going to find them really interesting. And I will talk to you on the flip side. Don't go too far. This is from the Des Moines Tribune, Des Moines, Iowa, December 10th, 1936. Landis rules Feller Indian property. Club must pay Des Moines $7,500. Keyser says decision wise and just. Verdict gives big leagues triumph. Opens Sandlot diamond markets to Major League scouts. New York. Bob Feller, 18-year-old Van Meter, Iowa pitching sensation, Thursday was declared the property of the Cleveland Indians by Commissioner Kennesaw M. Landis. At the same time, Landis ordered the Indians to pay $7,500 to the Des Moines Club of the Western League. Des Moines had protested that its efforts to contract Feller had been frustrated by Cleveland's signing him in violation of the major minor league rules. Feller broke into the limelight on September 12th when, pitching for the Indians, he fanned 17 Philadelphia Athletics to set a new American League strikeout record and equaled the major league mark. The commissioner's decision, revealed in 3 closely typewritten pages, was regarded as a great triumph for the major leagues, who are in the midst of a campaign to open the baseball market even down to the sandlots for major league scouts. It also precluded the possibility of several more, quote, Feller cases, unquote, within the big leagues because it was openly charged that at least a score of players in the lineups today didn't exactly come into baseball without some minor or major league agreement violations. In giving his long awaited decision, Commissioner Landis called attention to the action of the major and minor league clubs in amending the old rule to permit scouts of any club recommend players to other clubs without the penalty of forever losing the player recommended. Consequently, read the decision, the commissioner is precluded from entering an order and invalidating the Cleveland Feller contract. It should also be observed that from the beginning of the inquiry, the player and his father, who also executed the contract, the player being a minor, who have zealously sought and supported validation of the Cleveland contract. Further, so far as Des Moines, the complaining club, is concerned, invalidation of the Cleveland Feller contract would be futile, as its only result would be to recreate precisely the same situation through Feller's signing a new contract in the name of some other minor league club acting for some other major club. The commissioner said the Feller case never would have happened if Cleveland had named Cyril Slapnicka, assistant to the owner Alva Bradley, as vice president of the Fargo Moorhead Club before he, Slapnicka, signed the pitcher. The farm system, explained Landis, brought to farm owning major league clubs the services of a great number of sandlotters and created a new problem which ultimately made Feller a case. The natural, inevitable consequence, his statement read, was that other major league clubs assumed that to compete with their farm system associates, it was necessary that the likewise secure sandlotters by signing them in the name of or by minor clubs with which they were working or friendly. This was done by a process which is euphemistically termed recommendation, a major league club through its officials and scouts recommending to a friendly minor club that the sandlotter be signed, and subsequently recommending that he be transferred to the major club or to some other club it designates. This was the procedure following in the Feller case. This was the procedure followed in the Feller case, wherein Cleveland recommended that Fargo Moorhead contract. Feller recommended that New Orleans offer, and Fargo Moorhead accepted $200 for the contract, recommended that Feller quote unquote retire and later go to Cleveland. The award of $7,500, which is the equivalent of $165,661.51 in 2023. The award of $7,500 to Des Moines, he explained, was based on the fact that the sum was offered for Feller's contract as a free agent. This is another article in the same page. It says Keyser not entitled to $7,500, says Feller's dad. Uh, let's see, Van Meter, Iowa. W.H. Feller, father of Bob Feller, 18-year-old high school pitching prodigy, whom Kennesaw Mountain Landis ruled the rightfully property of the Cleveland Baseball Club, said, quote, Bob will feel right about the decision. Bob is a senior student, was attending class and could not be reached immediately for a statement. The father said he was satisfied with the baseball commissioner's ruling, except that he did not understand why Judge Landis awarded E. Lee Kaiser, president of the Des Moines Western League team, $7,500. Quote, I don't believe $7,500 should be paid to Des Moines, for Bob never had a contract with Keyser and never worked out with the team, Feller said. Des Moines had no more right to Bob's contract than any other minor league club, the father added. There was no doubt in the father's mind but what his son would be entirely satisfied with the ruling. Bob himself recently said, if the judge would leave it up to me, I would have passed up whatever opportunity I might have to become a free agent and stay with Cleveland. The Indians gave me my big chance, and I'm indebted to them. So Bob Feller was still in high school when he was signed by Cy Slapnicka, and he still had to graduate high school. It's kind of interesting. He really did very well, and he wanted to be on the Indians. He didn't want to be on any other team, even though the Yankees and the Red Sox really wanted them, and they tried to sign him. And from what I've heard, that Bob Feller, he could have been a free agent, and he could have signed with any team he wanted to. And from what I've heard, the rate on Bob Feller then would be like $100,000 for his signature on a contract. That would be like the equivalent of $2.8 million today in 1936 finances. That would make Bob Feller the highest paid rookie of all time. And, it didn't happen. And Feller, he didn't make that much money as a player for the most part. I think he became pretty wealthy through insurance, is what he did in the offseason later on in his career. But again, he still had to graduate from high school. And from what I've heard too, is the first autograph request that he ever got was from a kid named Robin Roberts. And obviously, Robin Roberts is the Robin Roberts who is in the Hall of Fame. He became a pitcher, I think, because he watched Bob Feller pitch. Um, there's also some speculation on how fast Bob Feller's fastball really was. And prior to, like, say, 1946, when they had radar and they actually tracked how fast his fastball was, and in 1946, I believe they tracked it at 105 miles an hour. But can you imagine Bob Feller's fastball in, say, 1936, 37, 38, or 1940 or 41? It probably was consistently maybe 100 miles an hour to 110. I could definitely see him pitching like 105 to 108 miles an hour, but he was also notoriously wild as well, and I would not want to be hit by a Bob Feller fastball. I don't want to be hit by a fastball anyway, specifically that of Bob Feller or Ryan Duran from the Yankees. Uh, that guy was scary, scary. And 1939, Bob Feller had a really great season. So in 1939, he went 24-9, and the Indians came in third place. I think second place was with the Philadelphia Athletics. The Yankees actually they were in first place, and by 20 games, the Indians were in third. So there's no way that the Indians would have ever caught up to the Yankees at all, even with two Bob Fellers. And again, Bob Feller was considered a phenom at the time. And the one thing that the hobby is really good at is saying that everybody's a phenom or phenomenal, or rare is another word that I really don't like, or legend or legendary. So we have these words in abundance throughout the hobby. But in Bob Feller's case, he was a phenom. He truly was. 1940 is a really, really big year for Bob Feller. And uh, there's two things going on in 1940. It's so 1940 is kind of sandwiched in between two really big years in baseball. You got the 1939 centennial, and then you've got 1941 with Ted Williams and Joe DiMaggio, and the looming World War. And so 1940 kind of is one of those years that is really kind of forgotten. I think nobody really talks about 1940 except maybe the World Series. But outside of that, you don't really hear too much going on in 1940. What did go on in 1940, which hasn't happened since, is that Bob Feller ends up having a record breaking year. The opening day versus the White Sox and the Indians, Bob Feller has a no hit. He was very lucky. I'll say this: he was very lucky. The first batter he faced was Bob Kennedy, and Bob Kennedy, he's actually a really good ball player. He was mostly known for the White Sox and on the Indians as well. He's on a 1951 Bowman card, and he's also on a 1947 Tip Top as well. So Bob Kennedy is also the leadoff too, and so he struck out. Feller strikes out the side, right? And then in the second inning, so Bob Feller, he's always had problems with this player named Taft Wright, and Taft Wright is a phenomenal player in 1941 and 1940, and Feller has always had historical problems with this guy. Very, very fast, very speedy player. And so Taft Wright, he ends up hitting the ball to Roy Weatherly, who dropped it. And so Roy Weatherly, I think he's an outfielder. I didn't write this down, but he's in the 1941 play ball set. And Roy Weatherly, he does some acrobat style play, and he gets Taft Wright out here. And actually, this one's autographed. And Taft Wright, actually, he passed away in 1981. He's a little bit of a difficult autograph to achieve or get. So I was really, really interested. And I think This is a 1942 White Sox jersey as well. I really like this card, and he's in the 1941 uh, play ball set. Feller then walked Joe Kuhl. Kuhl spends about like 20 years in major leagues, and he's a really good ball player. After that, he retired the next 20 batters in a row. So the only run that the Indians scored uh, came from Jeff Heath, who I know of from the St. Louis Browns and the Cleveland Indians. But he's also another pretty good ball player. Anyway, Jeff Heath, and then he was knocked in by Rollie Hemsley. Rollie Hemsley hit a triple, and Hemsley was Feller's personal catcher. So Luke Appling is notorious for his great bat skill, a very, very good bat control, and he's a really tough out. And so he's really kind of known for fouling pitches, and it's his specialty. Obviously, he's in the Hall of Fame. He had a 10 pitch walk with Appling. So Appling, he's the first player since the third inning to actually reach base. And up comes Taft Wright again, and Feller threw the ball, and Wright hit a screeching ground ball down to second base. Second baseman Ray Mack, he managed to knock down the ball, and he barehanded it over to Hal Trotsky, uh, who was a great ball player in himself. So let's try this one again. So so Luke Appling reaches first base. He's the first player to reach first base since the third inning, and up comes Taft Wright again, and Taft Wright hits a screamer towards second baseman Ray Mack, who he managed to knock down the ball, and he picked it up, and kind of like an acrobat, he threw the speedy Taft Wright out, and that ended the game. And he threw it to Hal Trotsky, who was the first baseman for the Indians. Trotsky himself, I was reading into Trotsky's story, and he's got an amazing story. Unfortunately for him, he had severe migraines, and it ended his career. But if it didn't, Trotsky probably would be in the Hall of Fame right now. But a really, really solid ball player, Hal Trotsky was. And so after the game, it's kind of funny that uh, um, so after the game, it's kind of funny that Feller's catcher. So it's kind of funny that after the game, how what the fuck? So it's kind of funny that after the game, Raleigh Hemsley said, "Yeah, this isn't one of Bob Feller's greatest moments. Like, he didn't do so well. He's had better games," which I thought was kind of funny. Um, but later in the season, there's something that's going on that's it's really incredible, and it happens to be something that they call the crybaby. So later on in the season, there's something that occurs that's really incredible in 1940, and it's called the Crybaby Revolt. And I'm going to read an article about this because I don't know of any other team that has faced this before, except for maybe the 1943 Phillies. And that one I'm probably going to talk about in a different video because that deserves a completely different video. I don't want to get too far in. Indians are in a really tight pennant race with the Tigers and the Yankees, and it's so tight, in fact, that the manager of the Indians, a guy named Oscar Vitt, he calls his players crybabies, and he just starts berating these guys, and they can do nothing right in Oscar Witt's eyes, and he's been the manager for like 3 years at this point, and the players are so ticked off with this guy. They go to their team captain Hal Trotsky and they say, "Hey, listen, like something needs to be done about this guy. He's driving us crazy. Like we can't get anything done." And so Trotsky says, "Okay, well, we'll wait for a while and see what happens." He's like, I don't want to like do anything that's gonna like create the team more problems. So they're like, oh, we can't really wait around. Like we don't really want to do this. So anyway, Trotsky finally says, okay, fine, I will uh, I will go to Alva Bradley and I will tell him what's going on with this manager and see what happens. And unfortunately, what happened was that Trotsky, his mother dies. And so this is in like June 10th of 1940. And so Trotsky is on board a train going to the funeral. And he actually phones the players while, he's there away from the team. So it's not like he sets this stuff up and then like he's gone and like the press had said like well this is really convenient, right? No, so Trotsky was actually in communication with the rest of his team. In the meantime, a lot of the players actually signed a petition to have Oscar Witt removed. What happened was Trotsky sends two of his players to meet with Alva Bradley, and instead he gets 10 players who step in as well to meet with Alva Bradley with a list of demands. And Bradley's like, okay, like you could have like two players have a quarrel with this guy, but you have 10 players who are saying the same things, and they all have a list of demands on this, and they're like four specific demands that they wanted met. And at the time, there is no players union, and so I actually read into this, and I probably could do like another video on this if you guys really wanted me to, but I figured that I could just kind of tell you guys players involved in this were Ray Mack, Sam no Ray Mack, Ben Chapman, who I'm probably going to talk about in another video. He's notorious for other things. Al Smith, Bo Bell, Mike Namack, Soup Campbell, Bruce Soup Campbell, that is, Mel Harder, and this is what really kind of set everything off was that Oscar Witt had gone to the mound. They were actually supposed to be playing the Boston Red Sox, and the game was rained out. This is on June 9th or 10th that the game was rained out, and then so what these players did was that they all got together in their hotel room, and and then they decided like let's get rid of our manager. From what I've heard, and I can't verify this, from what I've heard, they actually left their manager at the train station in Boston. I can't verify that. I've heard it from a few people, but that would have been spectacular if that actually happened. I've never heard of that happening before. But so Mel Hatter was like, he was chewed out on the pitcher's mound by Oscar Witt, and that's what really set the other players off because Mel Hatter, he was a stellar ball player. He had won like 15 games every year since had been with the Indians, and like he was just a really great pitcher. And so these guys are like, we've had it, and we want to do something about it. So you also had John Allen too, and John Allen was probably the nastiest human being you could ever meet in your life. He used to growl at kids when they asked him for his autograph. He was brutal, and he started out with the Yankees in like 1932, and his uh, his 1934 Gaudi was the first Gaudi card that I ever got for my collection, and I have a photo of that particular card in one of my articles. It's got a huge gouge in it, but I love the card just because it's got to tell some kind of a great story, and it It looks awesome, even with the gouge. So in the 1951 Cleveland Plain Dealer, it was found and published a memo. So this is a really fascinating memo which they found in 1951. I don't know who found it, but I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for this. Anyway, Alfred Bradley says in this memo, we should have won the pennant. Our real trouble started when a group of 10 players came to my office and made four distinct charges against Oscar Vitt and asked for his dismissal. The allegations on investigation were 100% true. In 1940, the Indians went 89, 65, and 1, and they were second in the American League. They were one game back behind the Detroit Tigers, and the Yankees were actually two games back for third place in 1940. And I looked into it deeper in the athletics. They were 36 games back, and they dug themselves into a hole to China. So they never got back, and they were actually 54 and 100. So that's kind of like in a nutshell what the 1940 season was for the Cleveland Indians. And then, as I said before, Bob Feller he uh, he led the league in 1940 in wins with 27 and 11 record and a 2.61 ERA. He had 261 strikeouts. He was an All-Star for the third time in a row, and that's when the All Star game actually meant something. And then he was second in MVP behind Hank Greenberg, and he was voted the American League Player of the Year by the Sporting News. And he also won the pitching triple crown, which a lot of people don't really talk about these days. That pitchers do win the triple crown, and I thought that was really interesting. So this was the first of the three no hitters that Bob Feller pitched. The others were in 1946, and I think that was with against the Yankees. And in 1951, with the Detroit Tigers was the other, and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1962. Uh, this is really interesting too. So his catcher in high school was a kid named Niall Kinnick, and Niall Kinnick he was the 1939 Heisman Trophy winner, and unfortunately he passed away in World War II. He was killed in World War II in an accident, training accident. But those two guys played with each other on the American Legion team. Really find this really fascinating stuff. I love talking about the players of the past, and especially guys that I knew and talked to, and like guys like Bob Feller. A lot of people they they talk about Bob Feller and they make a really a great deal about Bob Feller, and there should be actually, because there aren't too many pitchers that I can think of from the 1930s that are of Bob Feller's status. And you can look into his stats, his career, and they're amazing. And they'd even be even more amazing had he not gone off to fight in World War II to defend our freedoms, but he felt that that was more important than his baseball career. Obviously, it was, and he had no problem with that. Uh, so I salute Bob Feller for everything that he's done on and off the field, and he was a great person. He really was. He was good to me. He was good to his fans, and he was always there for an autograph. And so, again, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit more about Bob Feller's early career because it's not talked about often enough, and a lot of people don't know the kind of situations that he was in as a early a teenage player. His nickname was the Heater from Van Meter, and I thought that was actually a very appropriate, very cool nickname. And there's a lot of like really neat nicknames going on back in the 1930s and 40s and early 50s. But again, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. I greatly appreciate it as always. Let me know if you have any good Bob Feller stories to share. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about them, or any cards that you have or want for your collection. Again, I'd love to hear what you have to say about that too. And I will talk to you guys in the next video.